Tree of Life, new movie by Terrence Malick, who I, Badlands, Days of Heaven, more recently New World, Thin Red Line. And, I mean, somebody who makes films very, very infrequently. And it is extraordinary the regard with which Malick is held within both the filmmaking and the critical community. It's interesting seeing some of the reactions to Tree of Life, because everything seems to start with, firstly, a declaration that everyone fundamentally loves Terrence Malick, whether he's on form or off form. And there is a very good reason for that, and it is that for a very long time he made very few movies, and whenever he made them, they were really something. You look back at Badlands. I mean, I really like Days of Heaven. I really like Thin Red Line, although for some people that was a sort of turning point. I didn't like New World. That was the first of his that I didn't get. So the story is essentially, in the present day, Sean Penn, as just mentioned there, remembers his childhood and growing up with a very, very authoritarian father played by Brad Pitt, who is somebody who had musical ambitions but ended up being something of a failed businessman, and his mother played by Jessica Chastain, who is essentially an earthbound angel. The mother in voice...
What, a real angel?
Well... Using the word "real" in connection with this story is a little bit loaded. No, she's a human being, but she is shot in an angelic way, shall we say? Okay. A lot of it is voiceover. A lot of it is you hear voices whispering. A lot of this sort of stuff, not saying "Bring me Harry Potter," but saying "trees, life, love." Well, okay, so
why would they do it like that?
Because it's a voice. There's an awful lot of meaningful voiceover, and one of the meaningful voiceovers at the beginning
make it meaningful.
There we go. So you can already see which side of the debate you might fall down, and this is one of the reasons why very early on in the screening people started to lose patience. Okay, so the voiceover very early on says that we are torn between our animal nature and our divine nature, and essentially in the family we see to some extent the mother is the go towards divinity, and the father is the you've got to fight, it's a tough world. The father is played by Brad Pitt. Here is a clip from one of the segments of the movie that is as close to narrative as the movie really gets.
Your mother's naive. It takes fierce will to get ahead in this world. A few good people take advantage of you. Every one of these top executives, you know how they got where they are? Floated right down the middle of the river. Don't let anyone tell you there's anything you can't do. Don't do like I do. Promise me that. I dreamed of being a great musician. I let myself get sidetracked. But you're looking for something to happen, that was it. That was life. You lived it.
I like that organ.
Yeah, well, that's him playing. Actually, I have to say, during those shots, it does look like he's actually playing it. What then happens is that the film flits between the present with Sean Penn, his memories of the past, and a sort of an imagined other world. And we learn very early on that one of the brothers has died as a teenager. We see the mother receiving a letter. We see the father receiving news of the death. And the movie then becomes essentially a meditation on the nature of life, the nature of nature, and to some extent the nature of the afterlife. And in one of the sections that was referred to in that email, it does this by actually going off into a long and fragmented loop about the birth of life itself, the birth of the universe. And Doug Trumbull, who did such spectacular work on 2001, has worked on some of the visual effects. And there are some very Kubrickian sort of scenes of, worlds being born in fire and microbes starting to grow and little things growing in water and then crawling out of the water. And then there's a, frankly, very hard to take sequence of dinosaurs, which is not so much Jurassic Park as Walking with Dinosaurs. And there's a sequence in which there's a wounded dinosaur and another dinosaur comes along and looks like it's about to eat the wounded dinosaur, puts its foot on its head, but then thinks better of it and then goes off. And is this the birth of morality? And this whole section, I have to say, is pretty much a defining section, because a lot of the audience that I saw it in lost it at that point. And I do think that the dinosaur section is a mistake. Much as I love the Doug Trumbull stuff, the dinosaur stuff is a mistake. What then happens is that the movie very, very unashamedly talks about the connection between spirituality and nature. I mean, some people have been slightly taken aback by how overtly spiritual the film is, which is strange, because all the tree hugging stuff is there in, for example, The New World. I mean, there is actually literally a scene in The New World of somebody hugging a tree.
Is it a pantheist?
Well, it is a Judeo-pantheist piece, and it's certainly... So what it seems to do is that it seems to see divinity within the evolution of nature. And it does this in a way which is so completely unashamed and so completely non-ironic and so completely bowled over by the miracle of life that it's very easy to... Firstly, it's very easy to smirk. Secondly, it's very easy for people to just go, oh, don't be stupid. Enough already. And more importantly, it's quite easy for the film to fall over into platitudes. When Terrence Malick first started out, his films were much more rigorously narrative than this is. One of the things about narrative is that, that thing in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy about the somebody else's problem field, when you can only see something by looking to the side of it. Otherwise, if because your brain just sees something, it's so extraordinary, your brain goes, I'm sorry, that's somebody else's problem, and doesn't see it. So you have to look away to the side to see it. Well, one of the things that narrative cinema stories do like that is that they quite often manage to deal with incredible transcendent subjects through apparently down-to-earth stories. That's how parables work. It's the grounding in the fundamental narrative story that makes you actually able to see the transcendence out the side of your eye. However, when the film literally turns face on and goes, birth of the nation, birth of creation, dinosaurs, microbes, and taking away, all that stuff, it is very, very easy for it to fall over into platitudinous. And now, much as there is great beauty, and there are so many moments in the film in which only a director of Malick's, you have to say it, heart, of somebody who clearly cares. He is in the economy of filmmaking. If Michael Bay is the Antichrist, right, he's the opposite of that. He's the person who cares only about the film and loves cinema, and clearly has a sort of ongoing a spiritual pantheistic message, which he is very unashamedly putting up there on the screen, and which, as you're watching it, you can feel within yourself this kind of wrestling, which is there are things that you love and things that are impressive, but you do have to admit, I have to admit, there are sequences in it that simply don't work for me, and I think in general, the dinosaur sequence being one of them. And there are, when you realise, for example, that we're going on a huge and very literal loop about the whole birth of creation, you do feel like, yeah, okay, right, come on, you've got to move back to something that resembles a narrative. Now, that said, with all those faults, so I think that it is a very, very flawed film, and I think it'd be very easy to laugh at it, and certainly there are certain sequences that kind of invite that. That said, and this is a serious point, the film is about parents having lost a child and remembering the child and trying to deal with the loss. And I have to say, quite honestly, I know somebody who was in a sort of a vaguely similar circumstance, who was of a religious frame of mind, and whilst I was watching the film, I did think, if they were watching this, I think they would see a truth in it, and I think they would see, more importantly, that it's a film that is desperately attempting to deal with a tragic subject, but to deal with it in a way which is positive and uplifting. It is a film which basically says it's all right. It's all right. We are all one, and there is more to it, and the tangible and the intangible are all together. And even while it's a film in which there are choruses of amens, and not in an ironic way. And this has caused many critics to be very sniffy about it, because as soon as people just barefacedly do that sort of stuff, you kind of said this yourself once, that it's funny how as soon as that sort of stuff comes in, people feel it's quite easy to sneer. But I have to say, I do think underlying all the things that are wrong with it, and it's by far, in a way, not my favourite Terrence Malick film, there is an honesty, a genuine honesty, and a genuine goodness of purpose in it that makes you go, you know what? To criticise it is almost churlish. There are so many things wrong with it that to not criticise it is foolish. But it is what it is. It is somebody standing up and going, this is what I believe. And exactly what it is they believe, incidentally, is open to a million interpretations. And there are little fragments of it that work. And I think, depending on the frame of mind, that classic thing about the greatest movies will give back to you what you take to them. There are moments when my cynicism just went, I can't be doing with them, particularly the dinosaurs and some of the, but there are other moments which it touched certain key things. And I do think that it is addressing a very difficult subject and attempting to do it in a way which says it's all right. And God bless him for that.